So I'm currently sitting in a crypt next to an iron coffin designed to thwart grave robbers. How do you spend your time?
In the early decades of the 19th century, Britain faced a strange and unsettling problem. The rapid growth of medical schools and the increasing demand for anatomical study created a market for human bodies that far outstripped the official supply. At the time, the only lawful source of corpses for dissection was the public gallows, but the number of executions was too low to satisfy the needs of medical students and surgeons. Into this gap in the market stepped the so-called Resurrectionists, or body snatchers, who exhumed the newly dead from churchyards and sold them for profit. Depending on the condition and size of the corpse, a body could fetch between £8 and £14, a considerable sum at the time. It was a trade that provoked widespread fear and outrage. Families who could afford it employed night watchmen or even placed iron cages, known as mort safes, over graves to prevent interference. But where there's a problem, there's a solution, and it was in this climate that the iron coffin was developed. Patented in 1818 by Edward Bridgman, the iron coffin was fitted with a lid that locked into place with a spring mechanism, making it almost impossible to open without tools. These coffins were not only sturdy but also resistant to quick decay, which in itself helped discourage resurrectionists, as medical schools preferred bodies that would decompose more swiftly. The coffin on display here, in the crypt at St Bride's Church in London, is an example of this ingenuity. Advertisements from the period promoted them under the slogan, "Safety for the Dead," reassuring grieving relatives that their loved ones would rest in peace. Yet the very durability of the coffins that made them attractive also caused problems. In 1820, the church wardens of St Andrew's, Holborn, even refused to permit a burial of a body in an iron coffin, fearing that the ground would become clogged with undecayed remains. The case ended up in court, which allowed the use of iron coffins but imposed higher burial fees to reflect the greater difficulty of managing them. The notoriety of body snatching only grew during this period, reaching its darkest chapter in the Burke and Hare murders of Edinburgh in the late 1820s. Unlike the grave robbers, Burke and Hare dispensed with exhumation altogether, killing vulnerable lodgers and selling their bodies directly to an anatomist. Their crimes horrified the public and contributed to calls for reform. Reform which came in 1832, as the Anatomy Act finally provided legal access to unclaimed bodies from workhouses and hospitals, breaking the trade in stolen corpses. Until then, however, inventions such as the iron coffin offered one of the few ways for people to secure what was most precious to them, the peace of the grave. But that's where this video rests in peace. Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly subscribe. And you can also support the channel on Subscribestar via the link in the description or via YouTube's Super Thanks. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.